Begin. So today, this is the topic using multiple nodes on the NIME platform, basic hands-on experience. So what are the different types of nodes which we are going to explore in this today's activity? So first and foremost, we would be giving importance to the file reader, which is the most important and basic node. Second one, we would also be looking into the column reader. Third, we'll be giving importance to the column splitter. Fourth, we'll be using the reference column filter node. And finally, we'll also be using the row filter. So these are the different types of nodes which we are going to use in today's workflow, right? It might look very simple because there are only 5 nodes, but it might take a lot of time because you have to understand the question, and based on the question, you have to prepare your workflow. So this is the example which has been given, the question which has been posted. So if you read the question, the very first step, use the file reader node and import the file. So that is very easy. Second one, use the column rename node and change the column element name from customer type to nature of customers. That is also easy. The third one, show a separate reference column filter for step 2. I would be explaining what is the need for a reference column filter node and when it has to be used and where it has to be used and why it has to be used. So these are the three first basic steps which we have to do. Let me move to the fourth one. The fourth one is pertaining to the use of column splitter and separate the following data into two different categories. Probably, if a data scientist wants to understand the data set in two different dimensions, he has to split the data. So the very first dimension where he'll be splitting the data and considering only invoice number, branch, and city. In the second data set, he will consider only gender, product line, and unit price. If you do two separate analysis with two different data sheet, which has been originally taken from one data sheet, the outcome would be different. It's very easy for the researcher or for the business organization to understand the problem in different dimensions. They will also know and explore the data set in a better way so that they can take better strategic decisions. The third one, they can come out with multiple solutions for a single problem. The fourth one, they can come out with new ideas and creativity which might help the business unit to progress in a better way. So that is the reason why we are using one particular data set. We are splitting into two different categories and we are going to understand that. Let me move to the fifth step. Use the filter node to consider only the male consumers who have a credit card. If you look into the working population of India, majority of the working population are pertaining to the male consumers. And even if you take a small analysis from different banks, majority of the credit card users are the male consumers. So it is a general myth or an assumption that male consumers who have a credit card might be very profitable to the company, right? So we have to filter only male consumers who have a credit card. So that is pertaining to step number 5. Let me move to step number 6. Use the sorting option and arrange the data in ascending order. Sometimes your data sheet might have data which is over clumsy, which is too much, no, with too many rows and columns which are not arranged properly in a sequence. So how are you going to arrange the data sheet in an ascending order? So that is with regard to step 6. Step 7, exclude those male consumers who have a credit card, but those who purchase less than 10 units of quantity, right? You have to take only those consumers who have a credit card, but those who purchase less than 10 units of quantity. Consumers might purchase different quantities of products with credit card. It might be a single unit, it might be double unit, it might be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But from the company's point of view, those consumers who buy more than 10 units might be very much profitable. So that is the reason why we have to give importance to those male consumers who purchase using the credit card, but they have to have more than 10 units of quantity. So this is a very basic discussion and the workflow which we are going to do today. So let's get started with the NIME platform. So please do open your NIME now. I hope your NIME is open. I'm going to open my NIME. Just give me a minute and so. So I hope my NIME platform is visible to you as well, right? It would be good if you can please do type in the chat box and confirm. Okay, thank you. So now the very first basic step is to launch a project. So how do we launch a project? Please go to File, click New. When you click New, it would be asking you for two different options. One is New NIME Workflow, and the second one is New NIME Workflow Group. So you can choose New NIME Workflow Group, click Next, and Finish. So once when you click Finish, it might take few seconds of time so that your new project is getting loaded. And now your new project is loaded. Can you see this? Yeah. So now again, let's reiterate into the question. Please take the question which has been given to you. Step 1, use the file reader node and import the file. So two files has already been given to you, which has the Myanmar sales data. So in the NIME platform, if you have to start with any basic analysis, you have to depend on the file reader node. You can also use different types of nodes like Excel Sheet Explorer or even the table creator. But when you read the question very clearly, they have mentioned that you have to use only a file reader. So please go to your node repository, which you can see it on your left-hand side. Go to the search console and please do type file reader. So when you type file reader, the file reader node is getting popped up. Please use the drag and drop menu and please drop in the file reader node. I want you to give a name for your file reader node, your own name, right? I'm going to give my name because this is my activity workflow. So I'm going to give that. And I want you to give your own name. So when you take the screenshot and when you submit the same to me for verification, your file reader node should have your name, right? So this is a very basic thing which I want you to do. Now let's configure the data. Now let's execute, before executing the data, let's import the data. So how do you have to take the data? put your cursor on the file reader node, right click, configure. So as soon as you click configure, this dialog box would open. That is a file reader dialog box. You have an option which is called browse. Please go to browse. Please locate the folder where you have stored the data. So I have stored my data here. You can see the Myanmar sales data. I'm clicking open. I'm clicking apply. I'm again clicking OK. And now you can see that the signal has moved from red color to yellow color, which means this particular file reader node has accepted the data file and it is ready to be executed. So how do you execute it? Put your cursor on the file reader node, right click, and please click this execute. Once when you execute, there is a change in color which moves from yellow color to green color. So now check your data. Right click and go to your last option, that is the file table. So this is how your file data would look. So please do observe that it has almost 1000 rows, which means the data has been collected from 1000 consumers, and this is the different types of transaction history. It also has different types of column elements. It has invoice ID, it has branch, it has city, customer type, gender, product line, unit price, quantity, tax, total, date, time, payment, etc. So these are all the different types of column elements. So once when you have a basic understanding about this, let's move to the next one. Are you clear with this? Can you all please do let me know? This is a very simple step, so which has already been taught to you, and I hope it's very easy for everyone to understand. Yeah. Now, let's move to the second step. Please go to your question. Read the second step. What is the second step? Use the column rename node and change the column element name from customer type to nature of customers, right? Customer type to nature of consumers. So now again, let me go to the file reader node and click the file table to understand where is this column element. So where is the column element? It is here, the fourth one. Can you see the fourth one? What is the name of this column element? Customer type. So the question says very clearly that we have to change this name from customer type to nature of consumers. Are you clear with the question? So shall we move with the flow? So how do you have to perform this? You have to go to your node repository and you have to type column rename. So when you type column rename, the column rename node is appearing here. So please use your drag and drop option and please drop it into your workspace, right? And now give a name for this node. What is the name which you can give for this node? Changing name to nature of customers, right? So that is what has been given in the question also. From type of consumers to nature of consumers or customers, anything. Before executing, first you have to connect both the nodes together, right? Because the original data sheet is only with this file reader. So how do you have to connect both the nodes? You just have to connect it using your cursor like this. So now both the nodes are connected. So have you all connected the nodes together? Can you give me a very quick reply? Yeah. So now both the nodes are connected and it is ready to be executed. So how do you execute it? Before executing, you have to configure. How do you configure? Right click and press configure, or you can also press F6. Now, what name has to be changed? Which element, which particular column element has to be changed? There are so many different column elements. Customer type, right? How do you change this? Put your cursor on the customer type and double click. When you double click, this new dialog box would open, right? Pertaining only to customer type. But however, this is not activated for you. If you want to change, first you have to activate the change option. So please click the change option. As soon as you click the change option with this blue tick, it is automatically getting activated. So what is the new name which we have to give instead of customer type? Nature of customers, right? So please type nature of customers. And then you have to click apply and then click OK. So as soon as you click apply and OK, you can see that there is a change in the signal color. It has moved from red color to yellow color, which means you have configured the column rename node in a very successful way and it is ready to be executed. So how do you have to execute it? Right click and execute. Now let's check the output. Right click and go to the very last option, that is rename or retype table. So now go to your fourth column element. After invoice, it is branch. After branch, it is city. After city, it is now nature of customers. Initially, what was the name which was given? It was type of customers. But now very successfully, we have changed the name from type of customers to nature of customers. So step one has been very successfully accomplished, right? So let's go to the next step. So please read the next step. Step three, show a separate reference column filter, right? So we have to show a very separate reference column filter. Now let me tell you why should we show a separate reference column filter. But before proceeding with that, let's take the node. From where will you take the node? You have to go to your node repository and then you have to type reference column. So as soon as I type reference column, the very first node, which is called the reference column filter, is popping up. So use the drag and drop menu and please put it into your workstation. So I hope you have done this, right? So now this is a very new node for you. There is a change. There are two different input port. Can you see? There is not one input port, but there are two different input ports. What is that? For example, if you write a research article, inside your research article, you will be citing many different authors' research work, right? And if I'm going to read that article, I have to know whose work have you cited, which year this article has been published, where it has been published. So when I click that citation, it automatically takes me to the reference item, which is in the end of the article. So as a reader, it is very easy for me to know all the information pertaining to that citation. Please use the same concept here. If you are doing any changes in the original data, like changing the name of a column element from type of customers to nature of consumers, since you have done it, it's very easy for you to know. But if a client company to whom this data sheet has been given, they will not understand what type of change you have done, right? So for the third party to very easily understand, you always have to have the reference column filter, which means for any type of change which you have done, pertaining to any column item, you should have a reference column filter, which might be very useful for them and very easy for them to understand. So let's give a name to this node, right? I'm going to give reference to understand the change. Reference to understand the change. I've told you, you have done a change in this particular node. You have changed the name of one particular column item. So please connect that node to the very first input port. Second, you have to connect the original file to the reference column filter. Are you getting this explanation? Are you clear with that? What do you mean by a reference column filter and why should we use it? Now, let's configure. You can see that the reference column filter node has yellow color signal. So now let's configure, just right click and click configure. When you click configure, this dialog box would open, which is on reference column filter. And in options, you get to see two different options. Include columns from reference table and exclude columns from reference table. Which one should you choose? Logically, if you think, you have to exclude the column from, no, it's not include, it's exclude the column from reference table. I'll show you the output and then I'll give you the explanation, right? First, I'll show you the output and then I'll give you the explanation. See, we have done a change in this column item, right? Did you understand that? What is the change which we have done? We have changed the name from type of customers to nature of customers. This is a huge data set which has many column items. As a data scientist, you will be knowing very clearly what changes you have done, right? But if you give the same data sheet to a third party, they might not be in a position to understand what change has been done, though you have given a description. So you need a reference column filter to separately show what type of changes you have done. This is first situation. Second situation, if you're doing multiple analysis using multiple nodes, you yourself only will forget what type of changes you have done. Accepted? So it's always better to have a reference column node to show separately what changes have been done to the original data sheet. To do that, you have to use this reference column filter node, which you have to take it from your node repository. And please give a name to that reference to understand the change. This node has two different input sockets. One has to be connected to the file where you have done the change. The other one has to flow from the original data file. Are you clear till this? Now, you right click and click configure. In configuration menu, you have two types of option. One is to include and the other one is to exclude. Separately, you have to show the change which you have done, which means I want to separately show that column item in a separate data file where I've changed type of consumers to nature of consumers. So you have to exclude that. I'll execute it and then again I'll give you the explanation so that it's easy for you to understand. So I'm clicking exclude columns from reference table. I'm clicking apply. I'm clicking OK. And now I'm going to execute it. Now let's check the data output. I'm right clicking and I'm going to the filter data. Can you see that column element which I have done a change alone is shown in a separate data file? Can you see it? So in future, if you want to know what type of changes you have done, you have to use only this exclude option. If you use the include option, let's see what happens. Now again, I'm right clicking, I'm configuring. Instead of exclude, I'm going to type only include. I'm clicking apply and I'm clicking OK. Now let's execute and now let's check the final output. It has been taken away, right? It's very difficult for you to understand which change you have done. Are you getting the meaning? Yeah. So it is always better to exclude that particular item and to show it separately. So again, I'm configuring, I'm clicking exclude, I'm clicking OK. I'm going to. So if you give your data sheet to a third party, your third party will very easily understand what changes you have done, which particular column item you have changed. So when they open this file itself, they can understand, okay, that you have done some changes pertaining to this particular column item, that is nature of customers. Are you clear with this? So now we have also successfully done the third step. Now let's move to the fourth step. If you read the fourth step, use column splitter and separate the data sheet into two different data sets, right? What are the two different data set? Data set one should have invoice, branch, and city. Data set two should have gender, product line, and unit price. Is my voice audible to everyone? Can you please do confirm in the chat box with yes or no? Yeah. Okay. I think there was a small technical glitch in between. Let me read the fourth step again. Use the column splitter and separate the data into two different data sets, right? What are the two different data sets? Can you tell me? The first one is invoice, branch, and city. And the second one is gender, product line, and unit price. So now shall we proceed with the data analysis? So how do you have to perform this? Use the column splitter node, right? So go to your node repository and type column splitter. Are you all getting this column splitter node in your node repository? Can you type in the chat box? Yeah. So please use the drag and drop option and pull it into your workflow. Now, let me ask you a question. Yeah. Now, can you hear my voice? Is my voice audible now? Yeah. Now let me ask you a question. How many column splitter node you should take? One or two? Two. Why two? Because you have to perform two different functions, right? Yeah. So I'm going to take two column splitter nodes. I'm going to connect it to my data sheet. So original data sheet has been connected to dataset 1, dataset 1. And again, I'm going to connect my original dataset to dataset 2. So I'm going to give a name, dataset 2, right? So now you read the question again. The question makes it very clear that in data sheet 1, you want invoice, branch, and city. So let's configure your data sheet 1, that is your column splitter node. Right click, go to configure. As soon as you click configure, you get to see all different types of items. That is top items, which can be enforce exclusion, and bottom items which can be used for enforce inclusion. What are the three items which you have to include now? The first one is invoice, the second one is branch, and the third one is, what is the third one? City, right? Yeah. So please include all the three. Have you included all the three? Just check very carefully if your bottom enforce inclusion dialog box has the desired variables which you need. And then click apply and click OK. So as soon as you click OK, your column splitter has yellow color signal. Now right click and then execute it. Now please check your output. Your output has invoice ID, branch and city. And this is what you also wanted. Am I right? Are you able to understand what is this? Yeah. Now let's move to data set 2. Right click, again configure. What are the items which are needed for this particular data set? It is product line, gender, and unit price. So I'm taking gender first, then product line, and then unit price. The same method which you have to follow. Please again cross verify if your bottom enforce inclusion has the desired items which you wanted. Click apply and click OK. Now again you can see there is a change in the signal which has moved from red color to yellow color, which means it has been successfully configured and it is ready to be executed. Right click, execute. And please check your output. Go to splitted table, bottom partition. You can see you have the desired output, that is gender, product line, and unit price. So very successfully, we have created two different data sheet from the original data sheet. Are you clear with this? So the fourth step has been very successfully accomplished. Now read the fifth one. Please go back and read the fifth one. Okay. Okay. There's a question. What is the difference between splitted table top partition and splitted table bottom partition? If I click the splitted table top partition, those items which I removed is not there, but all the other items are here. So it's very difficult for me to know which items I have removed only, right? Because it's causing a lot of confusion. So that is the reason why you always have to use the splitted table bottom partition, which would show those data elements which you separated in a separate data sheet. Are you able to understand the difference between both? Yeah. So now let's perform the fifth step. Please read the fifth question. Use the row filter to consider only male consumers who have a credit card. This is a very tricky question, right? Because they are asking us to filter two different elements here. What are the two different elements here? One is to separate male consumers, and then we have to show those male consumers who use a credit card. So to perform this, you need a row filter. Where will you take a row filter node? Please again go to your node repository, go to your search bar and type row filter. So as soon as you type row filter, you get the row filter node. Please use the drag and drop option and use it and drag it into your workflow. Are you able to get the row filter node into your workflow? Can you please do type in the chat box? Yes. What is the name which we can give for this node? We'll mention male consumers, right? Because first we are going to take only the male consumers. Now you have to connect your original file node to this row filter node. So please connect it together. Are you able to connect it? Yeah, good. So now let's start executing it. How do you execute it? Put your cursor on the row filter node, right click and click configure. Now listen very carefully. Very clearly, we have to take only the male consumers, right? So male should be excluded or only that has to be considered. So what you have to do here, go to the second one, exclude rows by attribute value, right? I'm putting it in a different way. You can also include only male consumers or you can exclude the female consumers so that you get only the male consumers. You're getting the meaning of it. You can include only male consumers by attribute value or you can exclude the female consumers. But I'm performing it in a different way. Anyway, the outcome will be the same, right? So I'm clicking exclude rows by attribute value. In this column to test, I have to choose which particular option? Gender. Exactly. We have to use gender. And now we have to use pattern matching to exclude female. I'm going to exclude female, right? I'm going to click apply and I'm going to click OK. So now there is a change from red color signal to yellow color. So right click and execute. After you execute, you check the filtered outcome. The filtered outcome has only the male consumers. Can you see this? Female consumers have been excluded. So it has only the male consumers. I'll repeat it again. The question says that I want only the male consumers. So in this case, you can include only male consumers or you can exclude the female consumers. If you exclude the female consumers, then automatically only the male consumers will be there, right? So now I'm going to exclude the female consumers. So I'm clicking exclude rows by attribute value and I'm going to column to test where there are so many column elements, but I have to select gender. And then what item I have to exclude? I have to exclude the female. So I'm clicking female has to be excluded. I'm clicking apply and then I'm clicking OK. Now I'm going to execute and I'm going to check the outcome, which means female have been excluded and only male have been retained in this particular data set, right? So very successfully, we have filtered the male consumers separately. Now, what is the second filtration which you have to do? You have to separate whom? Yeah, those credit card holders, right? Male consumers who have a credit card. So again, use a row filter node. Use the drag and drop option to give importance to the second row filter node. Now, when it comes to the connection, you have to be very careful. You should not connect it from the original data sheet. Why? Because the original data sheet has male consumers and female consumers. But you please read the question. We want only male consumers who have a credit card. So that is why first we have used the row filter to separate only the male consumers. Now, from this data sheet, you have to segregate only the credit card holders. So please connect your first row filter node to your second row filter node. What is the name which you can give for this row filter node? Male consumers who have credit card. Are you clear with this? Yeah, male consumers who have credit card, because read the question again. It is asking only for the data pertaining to male consumers who have the credit card. So again, configure. When you configure, again, you have to be very careful here. You tell me what option will you be using here? We are going to include only the credit card holders. Now, let me ask you a question. Why can't we use exclude option like how we excluded female from gender category? Yeah, exactly. Because since there are three different options here, I'll show you the three different options. There is cash, there is credit card, and there is e-wallet. So if you have to exclude, you again have to perform the same function twice. For excluding cash, you have to have a separate row filter. Then again to exclude e-wallet, separately you have to have one more row filter. To avoid that, I'm going to include rows by attribute only one particular option, that is credit card holders. Right? Are you able to follow this particular step? Yes. So now you click apply and you click OK. Now, as soon as you do that, there is a change in the signal color. It has moved from red color to yellow color. Now you have to execute it. How will you execute this? Right click and execute. Now let's see the output. I'm right clicking and I'm going to the very last option, that is filter data. So can you see, first filter is I have only the male consumers. Second, I have only those credit card holders. Initially, we had 1,000 row elements, right? Do you remember? The original data sheet had 1,000 different transactions. But here, after using the filtration process, we are getting only 148 as the count, which means out of 1,000 consumers, there are 148 male consumers who use credit card as a payment option. Are you able to understand this? Yeah. So very successfully, we have accomplished the seventh step also. Sorry, the sixth step also. Now, let's do the very last step, that is the seventh one. Can you please read the seventh question? Exclude those male consumers who have a credit card, but those who purchase less than 10 units of quantity. Sorry. Yeah, we need the ascending order, right? So that is very easy. Let me tell you how you have to post your data in ascending order. Please go to your row filter, the final row filter, go to your last option, that is filter data, and you can see that you have to quantify, right? You have to arrange it. So go to this quantity. When you put your cursor, it shows three different options. What are the three different options? Sort descending, sort ascending. So now you can click sort ascending and you can see immediately the change. Those male consumers who have purchased using credit card, what number of quantity they have purchased has been arranged in an ascending order. So many consumers have purchased just one quantity, few have purchased 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10. But let me ask you a question. Who will be the most profitable consumers? Out of all this 148 consumers, who will be the most profitable consumers? Those male consumers who have purchased 10 and more than 10 quantity of products in number, and those who have used credit cards as a payment option. How do you get only this data? How do you get only this data? Again, you have to use a filter option. What is the filter option which you have to use here? Again, please, you exactly a rule-based filter. So no, you don't have to use a rule-based filter, but you can use a normal filter node. So please go to your node repository, take a new row filter, right? And then connect your last row filter to the new row filter. That is, we have used two row filters previously. Use the latest one to be connected to the new one. What is the name which we can give? Those mail credit card consumers who purchase more than 10 units, right? So that is the name which we are going to give. So again, very easy, right click, configure. Now, can you only tell me what options would you give here? Let's brainstorm a little bit. We cannot use exclude option because we want only that item to be included. What is that item? Those who are using or buying more than 10 quantity items. So what is the column to test item which you have to select here? Quantity, right? First you have to select quantity. Now, there is one option here which you can see which is called use range checking. Can you see this use range checking? Please activate that. It is asking us to specify at least one range boundaries. The lower also I'm going to give 10 and the upper also I'm going to give 10, which means I want to include data pertaining to those consumers who buy only 10 and more than 10 quantity of products. Are you able to understand the step? So you have to activate the range checking option. Now you click apply, you click OK, and then now you execute your data. Your data has been executed. Now let's check the output. Right click and go to the last option, that is filter data. So it's so easy to get only those male consumers who purchase 10 and more than 10 quantities of item using a credit card. Okay, there is one question now. Why don't we use only the upper boundary? Okay, fine. Let's check and see. I'm removing the lower boundary. I'm going to use only the upper boundary. Right click, execute, and then check the output. So now if you see the lower boundary and upper boundary, all the elements from 1 to 10 will come, right? So that is the reason why I told you before that let the lower boundary and the upper boundary both be only 10. So when we use this range, it's very easy for us to filter the data only what we needed. So have I cleared your doubt why we should use lower boundary and upper boundary? Can you please do type in the chat box? Yes. So this is the entire workflow which we have done. It is very simple. We have used multiple nodes. Now, what are all the different types of nodes which we have used? We have used the file reader node. We have used column rename option. Then we have also used a reference column filter. I have also explained why you have to use a reference column filter. We have used two different column splitter node. Then we have used three different column filter node, sorry, row filter node. So this workflow is an example for a credit card data sheet where we have used multiple different types of nodes. You can also perform similar type of analysis using different other types of elements which you prefer. So I hope today's class was very clear to you. You please practice the same and you please ensure that you submit it in the Google Classroom. Remember, the name of the file reader node should be in your name, right? It should be only in your name. Yeah, you have to submit it as an image. Take a screenshot and submit it in that particular data in that sheet. So thank you guys.